When the days drew near for him to be taken up, Jesus set his face to go to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him. And on their way, they entered a village of the Samaritans to make ready for Jesus. But the Samaritans did not receive him, because his face was set toward Jerusalem. When his disciples, James and John, saw this, they said, "Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them?" But Jesus turned and rebuked them. Then they went on to another village. As they were going along the road, someone said to him, "I will follow you wherever you go." And Jesus said to him, "Foxes have holes, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." To another Jesus said, "Follow me." But he replied, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." But Jesus said to him, "Let the dead bury their dead. But as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God." Another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but let me first say farewell to those at my home." Jesus said to him, "No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus. This afternoon, just after Mass, there'll be a gathering at City Park, and some people, from Taylor especially, and some of the others will be joining people in front of the church just to take them down. And the occasion for this is the World Gathering of Families that took place this year, an event that takes place about every 3 or 4 years. It's been delayed because of COVID, like so many things. It just took place in Rome, and it's a means in which the church can support families and support marriage, and in a continuing way, but to focus especially on the gifts of marriage and the gift of family and how important it is for every one of us individually, for our parishes, for the church, for society as well. So that'll be taking place this afternoon. Unfortunately, this COVID time, my schedule has been crazy, so I just found out on Friday that I have confirmation this afternoon as well. So I won't be able to join you at the park this afternoon, unfortunately, because I have to get up to Perth. I've got a whole church of young ones ready to be confirmed this afternoon as well. So unfortunately, we'll have to try it again next time we do this. But this again is an opportunity after COVID, really, to gather together and to spend time with one another, to get to know one another here in the parish and across the city for those who are invited as well, who may be showing up, and to celebrate something and to allow the church to serve these foundational institutions which are part of our lives. Every one of us growing up within a family, and then the mystery of being called to married life and the forming of a family according to God's wonderful designs and so many surprises that he brings for all of us. Our gospel today speaks of all vocations, of all the things that God asks us to do. Jesus sets his face towards Jerusalem and begins to make his way in preparation for following the will of his Father. And that mystery is the core of every vocation, a following, setting our faces towards Jerusalem, but an expression of setting our faces and our hearts towards what the Lord wishes and wants of us in our lives. And that is a steady thing. There's something about the gaze of his face that people would have seen to say he's determined to go to Jerusalem. And we see that in one another, and we've probably seen it within ourselves. When we're determined to do something, our face takes on a different disposition, and we set off to do what we need to do. But it's not one of violence, and it's not one of power, and it's not one of strength that is bodily strength or worldly strength. And the disciples are sadly tempted to call down fire on anyone who is standing in the way of Christ, and he lets them know that vengeance or violence in any form has nothing to do with the mystery of what he's doing in following his Father, but that there's a gentleness that is the expression, the outward expression of an inward core of strength, a decision of setting one's face towards one's goal, which is to follow the Father. But how is it expressed? With a gentleness and a willingness to be very, very patient with our own weakness and the weakness of our brothers and sisters. And in that, people will see in us a gentleness, but when they touch the core, they'll see something that is the core of what we've dedicated ourselves to in our faith and also in the vocation that we've been given. And no matter what that vocation is, recognizing that it's not something that I have created myself, or an institution that I've created myself, or a calling that I've created myself, but I'm following what the Lord wishes me to do. And the gentleness that comes from that, but the strength that comes from that, is the strength of knowing that the Lord is the author of everything that takes place in our lives. The wonderful and mysterious call to marriage is a mysterious call in how God very reveals himself to us. From the very beginning of his revelation, in the Gospels, but above all in the Old Testament, he uses a means of doing that, and he uses it as a simile, but also the example of marriage. He approaches his holy people as husband and wife approach one another. He enters into a relationship of all-consuming and all-giving love towards the other that marks the very nature of marriage itself. And if we hold that only marriage is some kind of convention or some kind of institution that exists among ourselves, then we're missing the foundational mystery of what takes place here. God approaches his people in a bond of marriage and assists those who enter into marriage in this life to live and participate in the very actions of God himself, in sharing the love that he has with his people that only God can have, that a husband can have for wife and wife for husband. And then to enter into the very mystery of creation itself, of bringing forth life itself. Two aspects of God's nature and of his desire and his will for us, that when we realize what's taking place and what we participate in the institution of marriage and its mystery, realize that we're acting as God wishes, but we're acting in God's place in something that we give to the world. And in realizing that, the church serves this institution because it's the very core of the love that exists within the church itself. From Christ into the hearts of its faithful people, in the sacramental nourishment that is given to all of us, in the baptismal call which makes us long for Christ himself, and then the living of that, making incarnate in our very lives the love that God has given to the world and to his church, in the life of husband and wife and parents towards children, of brothers and sisters for one another, and then going out into the world with that mystery of love, which is so important for all of us. Many people, including in society, wish to remove God from society or in the public place where we can speak, but we cannot allow God to be taken out of family life. It's the core. It's the core where he sits and he resides and he speaks in the hearts of faithful who give to one another in the fullness and really only in the mystery of how Christ can give himself completely to his people, that husband and wife can give to each other. Holding that miracle, that mystery that's before us, is something that is a great revelation that God has given to us. To live joyfully, to live in a sense proudly, and also to live with that having our faces turned towards the Father, that not sternness, that determination within ourselves that this is my means of holiness. This is the phrase that Pope Francis has asked us to reflect on in these days when we reflect on this, as marriage, as the mystery, as a vocation towards holiness, a vocation of giving completely of oneself and then being filled with grace, the grace that comes from the family itself, from the mystery of human sexuality, the mystery of life itself, and then of the love that is given to the world. Let us continue to pray that, worship it also, reflect upon it, strengthen it, and be willing to serve it in the church as one of the great mysteries that Christ gives to all of us.